Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game that I think, why don't you come on, walk over here with me, join me in the parking lot here at Jim Pattison Toyota on Region. Let's hop into a car. How about a BZ4X? Because you're going to want to hear what I have to say. So a nice electric hum of an engine will make it so that you can hear me loud and clear. Because this game, for me, is a game in which I walk away from more belief in the Winnipeg Jets based on this game than any other game that I've seen the Winnipeg Jets play so far this year. A lot of you are going to be like, Renny, what are you talking about? The Winnipeg Jets lost this game. They didn't even get the 2 points out of this. They had 2 points the other night here. How can you have more faith in this? And listen, you can say that. I would never interrupt your right to be wrong. So if you want to be wrong, you can go ahead and do that. But the Winnipeg Jets tonight looked more like the blueprint that they have established over the last number of years than any game I've seen them play this year. The Winnipeg Jets looked more like they could make me wrong in my saying that I don't think the roster is currently constructed can operate and perform and pull off the blueprint that they've tried to pull off the last couple of years. That game is the best evidence. That is exhibit A for any hockey fan out there, that the Winnipeg Jets could bring it out, trot it out, place it in front of you and say, see, we can do it. We can play that style, or a proximity to the style that we played last year. And this is the example that we can do it. Still lots of things to clean up. And maybe, this is probably building, but maybe, just maybe, this is, the most you could hope for from a Winnipeg Jets team, one that is going to be defending more often than it did last year. And that just means more pucks in the back of your net. We'll get to talking about Eric Comrie. I take a look at a number of the goals in this game. I know my man Tico, who I've talked about before on this show, was texting me and is definitely a guy who's not the biggest Eric Comrie fan out there. I would say this is a game that I think maybe, just maybe, the Winnipeg Jets walk away with a victory if Connor Hellebuyck is in net, finds a way to stop one of those 4 shots that was going in, although I don't think, the second goal of the game or the, the 2 power play goals scored against the 4th goal of the game, I don't think anyone's stopping those. Maybe there's an argument to be made about the other 2. But the Winnipeg Jets, as they played on this night, looked a lot like what the Winnipeg Jets, I think, are supposed to look like. There's a number of reasons for that. I don't want to go too long and too heavy on the Toyota opening drive on this night. I'd rather bring in Ken and have some of these conversations, because to me, one of the things about this game that I walk away and I'm happy about is that I think it's going to spur some interesting conversations tonight. And I want to get to those with my main man, Ken. So let me just allow you to walk away from this and I think, especially on a night where, if I just quickly look at the scores that happened on this night, the Edmonton Oilers were looking like they were about to lose. Taking a look here, the Oilers did lose that game, although they lost it in overtime, so they do get a point. The St. Louis Blues lose on this night. The Sharks lose on this night. And then who else would this Avalanche and Predators? That's a little less likely to affect the Winnipeg Jets here. But for the most part, outside of the Edmonton Oilers getting that point, the Winnipeg Jets, it's not a bad night for them when it comes. Winnipeg Jets find themselves 2 points out of a playoff spot right now, okay? If this is a turning point, and this is, to me, the kind of game that could be a rallying point, could be a reason for the Winnipeg Jets to believe in themselves, could be a game that they can say, okay, let's start replicating that over and over and over again. And we think we're going to go from being the team that, as I've pointed out to you, hasn't been able to beat playoff teams for a long time and typically only beats, lower echelon teams. I think it's like, November 24th, the last time this team didn't beat a team that was in last place in, one division or another. This game to me, I confidently think the Winnipeg Jets walk away with wins against fairly good teams. So we'll see if Ken agrees. I think he's probably going to, but if you were looking for positive Renny, he showed up on this night, but he only showed up because the Winnipeg Jets grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and threw him in front of the camera here tonight. I don't think there's a lot to be overly negative about in this game. Lots of optimism, I think, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan walking out of this game. And that, for me, is the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive here, ladies and gentlemen. And hey, this December, it's time to Toyota. Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. You may want to hop out of our BZ4X and hop right into a 2025 Tacoma 4x4 SR5 truck, because you can lease it from just $116 weekly for 64 months at 6.59% with $7,699 down and a $1,500 accessory credit. But hurry, the offer ends December 31st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. Okay, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business, folks. Here comes Kenny. I want to share a little something with you in the K&R audience. Rennie's got a little out of hand here, and the fridge and him, we're getting along a little bit too well. I'm supposed to be going down to see, if Frankie's watching, he's going to be like, Renny, you were supposed to be down here weeks ago. I was supposed to be down getting fitted for a new suit that I'm going to be getting from the boys at Vittorio Rossi. But Renny got fat. It's as simple as that. You've heard me talk about my struggles trying to be a TV personality and maintaining the look. I've been buckling down the last little while, and this gorgeous classic suit that I got from the boys at Vittorio Rossi is now, the button is closing up nicely. I'm close. So if you're listening, Frankie, I'm going to be heading on down there, walking in loudly proclaiming that Kenny and Renny sent me, and ask for you, Frankie, and the boys to see if you can hook me up here, because I know you're going to. You all should be doing that soon too. And that's that, folks. Okay, Ken. I thought that game was, so just to give you a behind the scenes, yep. Ken and I always talk a little bit. I texted Ken after the first period, and I thought that was the Winnipeg Jets' best period of the season up to that point. I know that they started out and boom, they're down 1-0. That doesn't help. And then I know that I'm watching the second period, and the Winnipeg Jets come out and boom, early on, they're down 2-0 again. So missing a little bit of what they had last year, Ken, although they did have trouble starting on time in the first period at times last year.
Yeah.
But I thought that the second period, outside of the beginning of it, was a great period. And the third period, I thought, was phenomenal as well. Came up a little bit short at the end there. But I have no doubt in my mind, Ken, that this is the best 60-minute effort that the Winnipeg Jets have put forth, and that we are starting to see some of the tenets that made them the President's Trophy winning team last year, and that we're starting to see a team able to play that style. And I think it almost got them the win on this night.
Yeah, and I wasn't ignoring you. I went down to see my dad at the first intermission. He was at the game here tonight, so I wasn't trying to leave you hanging with the commentary about how you thought it was a very good period. I do think, lethargic first period, first shift.
Right, yes.
Not first period. That's a tough one. Jets got to get that out of the zone. They got to be, again, you know that you are going to be under attack here. But again, after that, yeah, I mean, shots were a bit deceiving, Sean, for me. There were a couple, 3 flip shots in there that weren't really scoring chances, but high dangers were 5-4 for Dallas. So I thought the first was a mostly even game. Obviously the power play goal early was, pretty hurt, obviously, damaging to the Jets, giving up another goal. 2 goals in the first minute of each of the first 2 periods is not a great template or recipe, but again, this is one of the best power plays in the NHL, and excellent movement. And then two, Jets top line gets going again. I mean, a newly constructed version, but there's Mark Scheifele. There's a one-timer. There's a bad turnover from Nils Lundqvist, Sean. Like that play cannot happen if you're a team holding a 2-0 lead. And imagine how fans would have reacted if that's whoever it is, whether it's Logan Stanley or Dylan DeMello or any player in the NHL, Luke Shen. People would have been all over him for that turnover, but Jets converted it. Then they had a very strong power play. And as Wyatt Johnston is coming onto the ice, Josh Morrissey makes a great play, great pass, almost an identical one-timer. So not a power play goal technically, but Sean, it's close to a power play goal when the Jets still had 4 forwards on the ice and hadn't changed yet. So, a little bit risky business, but they had enough zone time, so they got away with it and they got another goal there. So in some ways, it's only 2-1 in the special teams battle, even though the sheet itself will say 2-0 for Dallas.
Yes.
The Jets, that to me is a power play goal because the player was still not involved in the play yet.
Agreed.
Having said that, the third.
Sorry.
No, you go.
Although Wyatt Johnston started salivating over the idea.
Oh, sure he did. Of a breakaway.
So he didn't get back as quick as he probably should have. He was looking to go the other way. The puck didn't get there, and the player who turned it over moved it straight over to Mark Scheifele, and it's in the back of the net, right? Like Wyatt Johnston should probably be going and trying to get up and pickpocket Josh in that scenario, and it's one of the reasons that puck's in the back of the net. Anyways, go on.
No, totally fair. But see, the other issue with saying it's still 2-1. The Jets get a couple of third period power plays, including a 6-on-4, and are unable to convert. So I totally understand Scott Arniel's frustration with that in a game where they do a lot of good things at 5-on-5. Now, Sean, for me, similar to what you're talking about, the more encouraging part about how the Jets played was 5-on-5. The Dallas Stars are a team that can take opponents to the cleaners at 5-on-5, as well as playing a strong, power play game. Today at 5-on-5, the Jets mostly, I wouldn't say they dominated. I don't think that's accurate, but they held the, fairly significant territorial advantage and generated plenty. And the fact that they were much better defensively and playing faster, I agree with you. It's encouraging for them that they might be able to, speed up their play to the point where they can play with contenders. And make no mistake, Dallas is one of the best teams in the NHL, and they would be the best team in the NHL if the Colorado Avalanche weren't going hog wild out of the gate here. Both these teams, Sean, this is reminiscent of 17-18, where Nashville and Winnipeg went toe-to-toe down the wire, 1-2 for the President's Trophy. And, for reasons only beknownst to the folks at the NHL, had to play in the second round, even though they were the 2 best teams, and that should have been the conference final. But I digress. If you're the Jets, there still are things to clean up, but that is a step. Like, this is not rose-colored glasses territory, Sean. Even though some folks are maybe suggesting that, this is the acceptance for the Jets that they need to be better still, and that staying close is not good enough. But when you are a team that has won 5 times in 17 games, you need to throw that up as a template type of game. This is not playing one of the worst teams in the league. This is playing one of the best teams in the league, toe to toe, and basically standing in the middle of the ring, trading punches. And, yes, they still got knocked down at the end. But if the Jets play like that more often than, if they can do it with any sort of consistency, then they'll be able to start getting wins over teams above the playoff line, rather than, what's been happening for the last month and change, 5 weeks and change now, going on 6 weeks where they haven't beat a team that is above the playoff line in the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's the last. This is not piling on, Sean. This is reality for the Jets. These are facts. And again, if they play like this for the rest of the homestand, they would have an opportunity to be 500 or better on the homestand. But now the big issue for the Jets is to stack games like this, not just think, oh, there's the template. Let's lean on it when we feel like it. Because the Jets can't afford to do this once a week or once every 3 games or once every 2 games. They haven't stacked nearly enough 60-minute efforts. And if they don't stack 60-minute efforts, they're going to still, be trying to get themselves out of this big hole they've dug for themselves.
There's already a big conversation about Jonathan Toews happening in our chat room here. We spoke with him earlier on today. I thought he had something interesting to say, and it's why I wanted to ask a question about it,
Sure.
about the idea that when the whole team is struggling, if you've got personal struggles, is it almost easier to get along because you can focus on the team struggles, right? Like you can be like, okay, I'm going, like, we need to get the team going. I'm secondary, right? Like every once in a while you'll see a team that's going really well, but one player is not scoring.
You bet.
And they're afforded the luxury of being like very selfish and like, oh man, I just got to get my game going too. And things are going to elevate here. Maybe a little, not that I'm calling him selfish, but like Gabe Velarde was at the beginning of the year. Things were going good for the Jets. He couldn't put the puck in the back of the net. You could focus a little bit more on that. So, in this situation the Jets are in, you can focus a little bit more on, well, this is what we're going to need for team success. So I can focus on that right now. I don't have to focus that things aren't working. But he was also asked about the being moved down to the fourth line. I'll say this, Ken, and I think that this is important. I think one of the things that like that we've seen here, and I've thought this for a long time, I've talked about it, the Winnipeg Jets were giving Jonathan Toews every opportunity to try and get going, to try and wake him up, just like they're doing with certain things. They're moving lines around now, trying to wake up different lines. I thought tonight, Ken, moving Gabe Velarde from that second line with Lowry to the Nemesnikov line with Perfetti was an attempt to try and get Perfetti to wake up. I actually think that somewhat backfired a little bit. I thought he looked, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I thought he looked better with Lowry's line. I thought that line looked closer to what it's looked like last year with him on there. Another puck possession guy, big body that's hard to kind of handle in that situation. We'll get to that a little bit more here, but I think one of the things that is helping the Winnipeg Jets right now is, until now, there's been coaching to kind of wake up specific players. And I don't think it's worked. And I think it's worked against the team. So the whole thing with Jonathan Toews, I get it. You want to get him going. You want to get the best of him. He's a guy that you're banking that is going to be making a difference come playoff time if you're able to make it to the playoffs. So they've been doing what they can to get him going. But the fact of the matter is the amount of production that he's been getting is not enough to justify the spot that he was holding in the lineup. And what happened, if this was just, a second-year player, he would have found himself down the lineup, and he would have found himself down the lineup a long time ago. I think, and I want your thoughts on this, one of the things that's been important to get the kind of response that you got tonight is that you are moving the guys who are earning opportunities into spots, and you are taking the guys who are not grabbing the brass ring over and over, and you're moving them down the lineup. And I would say that goes for Jonathan Toews being moved to the wing on the fourth line. I would say that goes for Gustav Nyquist, who's now watching from the press box. There was a lot of coaching happening earlier on in the year, catering to players, trying to get those players going. Now what I'm seeing and what I think works, and I always think, now I can say this, I'm not a coach, I don't need to deal with rooms and personalities, but I always think the right thing to do in sports is the people who are getting the opportunities and earning the opportunities should be getting more opportunities. That wasn't happen tonight. I personally thought this lineup was a better reflection of those who are earning ice time and the ones who aren't earning ice time losing opportunities. And I think that even goes for Cole Perfetti and the Nemesnikov line being moved down to the third line in the kind of hierarchy of things here. I think that's one of the reasons you got the response you got here tonight, because you moved into more prominent roles the players who have been earning those prominent roles. So am I off, Ken?
I mean, I'm not saying you're off. I mean, the issue for the Jets is still the same. I mean, they didn't get enough from guys not named Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor. I mean, Gabe Velarde still had 20 minutes in the game. Perfetti was able to chip in an assist. He had 3 hits, got a little bit more involved. He had 2 shots, 4 shot attempts. Um, so again, I mean,
Okay,
Taves.
hold
No,
on.
Taves is under 10 minutes. So your point is made. But who had the best scoring chance in the game? Who wasn't on the first line? It was Taves. He sailed
Okay,
it wide. I get it, but he had the best scoring chance of those
okay,
guys.
but
So
what did the lines look like? What did the lines do as far as doing things that would give you an idea that they're more likely to have success in the future? What did the lines do when it comes to executing the blueprint?
sure,
What did the lines do when it comes to tilting the ice and
yep,
taking away from the constant giant snowball of offense from the opposition that is always running over the Winnipeg Jets and kind of tilted it back in the other direction? Like I think I know exactly what you're saying, and to that point, and it's something we'll get to later. Scott Arniel made it abundantly evident in his post game
right,
that he's frustrated with the lack of support that the top line is getting. No doubt about that. But when it comes to those lines executing and looking more like what they're supposed to look like, which is what you want. It's more process is more important than
for
results.
sure.
So if the process is looking like it's starting to work, the results will come. I would contend that the results are more likely to come based on what things looked like tonight and how the opportunities were doled out than what we were seeing before when opportunities were being doled out to try and get specific players to shake off the rust and get going.
Yeah, I mean, and that's totally fine. I mean, I thought that Pearson. So when they flip flop Pearson and Velarde, Pearson actually fit in on that Lowry line. I thought he had a couple really good shifts for sure. They got on the attack a little bit more for sure. Perfetti and Velarde, I could see there being some potential there with Nemestikov. So, yeah, I mean, no issue there. And again, Jonathan, he understands he's got to be better, and then there would not have been many times during his career where he was a 9-minute player in the NHL. And again, he's got to work his way through it and fight his way through it. And Sean, based on everything that he said this morning, I saw a guy who wants to be better and knows that he can be part of that. But he is a guy that's going to be playing a complementary role. He's got to find his game in that complementary role and then see what happens from there. But yeah, I mean, the Jets have got to get going, in terms of secondary offense. I mean, Logan Stanley, 4th goal, 10th point. I mean, he's outscoring some of the Jets guys that they were leaning on heavily going into this season. And, as strong as it is for Stanley to be up to 4 goals, there are players who need to catch him. And that includes Taves, that includes Gustav Nyquist, that includes Cole Koepke, that includes Cole Perfetti at this stage. So, 100%. And all I'm saying is that I don't know that we've landed on the optimal situation.
I'm ready to hand out the Flame and Comfort comment
Nice.
of the game. Where is it here? Okay. Stephen Braun coaching says you either have a President's Trophy winning team or you have secondary scoring from Logan Stanley. You can't have both, which I got a huge crack out of earlier on. Sometimes a red hot comment is just a red hot
Indeed.
joke that a host can't stop laughing at in the middle of his show. So honestly, this was a home run here. And of course, that's your K&R take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James. When you get down there, you're going to see it is one of the most impressive rooms in Western Canada showrooms. You don't need your hot takes, folks, to keep that warm feeling inside. You can visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. I also wanted to build on this point. Love the no quit from our boys, says Phyllis. I really thought we'd get another Manitoba miracle tonight with how strong the boys were playing. I wanted to bring this up. I don't know what you saw, Ken. I saw a Winnipeg Jets team that was becoming that snowball rolling down the hill. And then they drew a penalty and It's like, okay, here we go. And then blah, nothing. after that. If I, and so I'm sure people now have heard my take on this and my theory on this for the longest of times, but I had said at the beginning of the year, the Winnipeg Jets would not be the comeback team that they were last year, that they were consistently last year. And it was because of the loss of Nikolai Ehlers. If I needed, Ken, if this was a thesis and I was going and I was presenting this at the university level,
Right.
I would take that last 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the game, and I wouldn't even have to step to the days and argue it. I would just press play on the VCR because I can't afford a DVD player if they even have those things anymore. And I would play the last 2 minutes and 30 seconds of that game and watch as the Winnipeg Jets failed time and time and time again to get into the zone with possession, never mind getting the Dallas Stars backed into a defensive position. It never even came close. And when it came to that time for the Winnipeg Jets to make the push that was so successful so often last year, they do not have that element. That element was so important because if you remember, last year, the Winnipeg Jets in situations like that would get the puck in the zone, and for like 2 to 3 minutes, they would rag the puck around the boards. They would just run ragged their opposition until finally something opened up and boom, the pass was made and it was in the back of the net. They never even got the chance to do that. And if you go back and look at this year, they rarely do. I said this was going to happen. Again, if I was delivering this at the university level, you would be calling me Dr. Renny at this stage because that was a perfect explanation right there. You want to know what Nikolai Ehlers meant to this team in the most crucial of moments? Just go back. I'm telling you right now, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The end of that game, go watch it and imagine what would happen if Nikolai Ehlers was winding up with his speed through the neutral zone and what would have ended up happening in that game. I contend, Ken, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Nikolai Ehlers is in the lineup. The Winnipeg Jets win that game tonight. They tie it up. They win that game in overtime because that's what Nikolai Ehlers does at just a base that very few players in the league can do. That's where they miss Nikolai Ehlers the most.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't had anybody that stepped up. No one's going to step up in the speed department. But again, this is where Cole Perfetti, Gustav Nyquist, Jonathan Taves, Nino Niederreiter, Vlad Nemestikov, these guys. I mean, Manitoba Miracle is not possible without Vlad Nemestikov's goal either, right? I mean, I'm not trying to give him short shrift here either, but he's now gone into a massive offensive funk here, Sean. That's 1 assist in 17 games, no goals, I believe. So, anyways, agreed. I mean, there were not enough clean entries. There were not enough situations where they had quality scoring chances. And right now, Jets power play is in a little bit of a funk itself. And they've done a couple things. They put Alex Iafallo out there for his retrievals. But they don't have, it's not as dangerous as it was last year, but yeah, they battled for sure. But those are the situations as you're talking about where it was commonplace. The Jets expected to win those games. And right now they're doing their best, but right now they don't have the formula to put it over the top. And of course, missing Ehlers is a massive part of that for sure.
So Gabe Vilardi gets pulled down. Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor just keep going. Your thoughts on their game with Alex Iafallo tonight?
Yeah, I mean, those guys have some familiarity, so I understand that's where the first turn of the wheel goes for sure. Iafallo in the game, 21, 33, 19 shifts. He is +1 in the game, 3 shots, 4 attempts, 3 hits, 1 giveaway. So Alex Iafallo is doing everything you would ask of him, right? I mean, this is a guy that, yes, he's played on that line before. Yes, he can play anywhere in your lineup, but Alex Iafallo mostly played on the Jets' 4th line last year. He seamlessly stepped onto the top line. I mean, and one of his best passes of the game was to Gabe Vilardi. Incredible pass in tight. Vilardi stopped twice. A great sequence there for Casey DeSmith. I thought his game was pretty solid. I mean, that line's going to look different with Alex Iafallo on it than with Gabe Vilardi. I mean, that's just the way that it goes. But in terms of, first look, I thought he did a nice job there. I mean, the thing is, I mean, Alex Iafallo, it's not that Alex Iafallo was playing great, so he got a promotion to the top line. They went there because there's familiarity there and because he's such a great digger along the boards, digger with the forecheck. And that's the other thing, Sean. We've been crushing the Jets for having no forecheck. This is finally one of the games they actually got a forecheck going, and they did it against a very mobile defense core and a defense core that got back Thomas Harley, who is a Olympic caliber player. And they have one of the best defensemen in the league in Miro Heiskanen. And Esa Lindell is a great shutdown guy that is also mobile. So, yeah, I mean, I thought that was an important part of it. So, for sure. Is it their optimal combination? No, but right now I think it was worth trying, and I would try it a little bit longer, for sure. I can't easily identify a better option there, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I would say it like this. I mean, Alex Iafallo spent time there last year when Gabriel Vilardi was hurt. Yeah. It worked last year.
And the year before.
Yeah, it worked again here tonight. In an effort to try and create more depth scoring. Now, I know, towards the end of the game, Scott Arniel went back to putting Gabe Vilardi on that line, and I guess so. I guess you would do that. It's one of the best lines in hockey when it's been together. But what I walk away from in this game, Ken, is that Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor can fly without Gabe Vilardi. Like, that works, okay? So if you need to try and spread around the love, what I walk away from tonight is the understanding that you can do that. You can have Alex Iafallo up there. So you're basically taking a top line guy, a guy that you believe is a top line guy. You're pulling him down the lineup. You're moving Alex Iafallo in there. And I don't think that the drop off is huge. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets, against one of the best teams that they've played in an extremely long time, gave themselves a really good chance to tie and potentially win that game, basically based off the strength of a top line that was ferocious on this night. And, this is like the whole, Josh Morrissey conversation where it's like you almost can't talk about Josh Morrissey every time you do a post-game show on here because he's just so good over and over again. It's getting hard to continue trying to find different ways to say how amazing Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor have been. Like, they are going up against really, really great teams, and they are dominating. They are the best versions of themselves that have ever existed. And what I saw tonight is that that's not reliant on Gabe Vilardi. It's not reliant on a three-way chemistry. And we probably should have known that because they were just fine with Alex Iafallo last year, which kind of brings me to the next topic. I had said on this program last game that when you break up that line and you take when you take Gabriel Vilardi and you put him down the lineup, it almost seemed to me like I don't understand. Not that I didn't understand. I totally understand. I just didn't think they'd get the results that they're looking for. Now, you don't exactly get that. You don't get like a runaway success with Gabriel Vilardi out there. But what I did see, Ken, coming back to what I talked about earlier on, was the best I've seen Adam Lowry's line look all year. And it wasn't close. Like, it was not even close. The way that line was able to start doing, they were back to some of their churning shifts. Gabe Vilardi did a really good job of working the boards with them. I'd like to see more of that line. I want to see what that line looks like with Gabriel Vilardi not only playing the grind that he brings to that line. It seemed like it had the other guys on that line, Niederreiter and Lowry, more on their toes. But right now I want to see if that grind leads to opportunities, and I want to see what Gabriel Vilardi's finishing touches on that line looks like with those opportunities. I thought, in an effort, and hey, when the wheel starts spinning, it's hard to stop it on the right thing, right? Like only the casinos know how to do that, right? The rest of us, none of us know how to do that consistently, grab the wheel and stop it at the right time. But I actually thought that the Jets' depth scoring got and the play of the team outside of the top line dropped off after they moved Gabe Vilardi to the line with Vladislav Domestikov and Cole Perfetti. I understand why they did it. You're thinking that those are the guys who are supposed to score for you, and Adam Lowry is the guy who's supposed to grind, and you needed goals in that game. So I get it, but I guess I would ask myself this question. Let's say both those two lines are going. Who's more important to the Winnipeg Jets? The Adam Lowry line grinding and the way that they tilt the scales for the Winnipeg Jets, or the second line scoring? And before you go and say, all you folks out there, before you go and say, well, the second line scoring because, then you score and they add up and this and that. It's like, no. The second line scoring to the capabilities you could expect from that line. Remember, it's Vladislav Domestikov, it's Cole Perfetti, right? Like these guys are a secondary scoring unit that you should probably only expect so much in the way of scoring out of. So I think that the wrong decision was made in that game, and I rarely do I, try and call out, and I don't think I'm doing that, but rarely do I say I think a coach made a wrong decision because they're on the bench, they get it. I just think that what you were seeing from Adam Lowry's line was the precursor to the rest of the team starting to return to the blueprint, because that's been the line that's what they do. They show you the blueprint. They say, this is how you do it, and everyone else follows. I saw the Winnipeg Jets following that line tonight, and I think there was a bit of a tail off after they switched that out. And outside of Mark Scheifele's line continuing to fly and fly and fly, I would think, if it were up to Renny, which it's not, and thank God it's not, but I would have Gabe Vilardi going back to that line with Nino Niederreiter and Adam Lowry going forward.
Again, I'm not here to argue, but just presenting the other side here. The good folks at Natural Statrics say at 5-on-5, the Perfetti, Vilardi, Domestikov line had 3 high danger chances with 0 allowed, and the Pearson moving with Lowry and Niederreiter, 2 scoring chances for, 0 against, so or whatever. So, anyways. Again, I'm not saying this is gospel. I'm just presenting it as part of the discussion. So, and I'm with you. I actually, and again, this is going to sound crazy because we just said it. Iafallo worked fine there. What we were talking about, if the Jets are trying to get some secondary scoring going, I would still consider putting Cole Perfetti up with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. Again, I'm not saying it has to be next game, and I'm not saying it has to be for 3 games or 3 periods or whatever else. But in this effort to get guys going, because of what you said, there doesn't necessarily have to be a big drop off. Perfetti looked a little bit more like himself today. We know that Cole is down on how things have been going. We know he stayed out late on a game day and on a practice day. I would consider still putting him. I know he doesn't do the same things along the wall as Iafallo or Vilardi, but I would still consider that as an alternative, as a way to try to get things going down the lineup too. But I'm also with you. I want to see everything. So I want to see Vilardi with Lowry and Niederreiter as well.
Well, I think you give that line a little bit of time, you're going to start to see them score, because I think they're playing the game the closest to the Jets blueprint that I've seen in a long time. And you too can score, folks. You can score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now that is what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca/rates for more. And Ken, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're at it?
Will do. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, whether you're buying, selling, curious what that house on the corner might be selling for, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
So Cam and Jim at CJOB at noon. I saw something from them the other day that I thought was really interesting. They played a clip from the Jets' last win against the Buffalo Sabres of a game that I honestly thought that the Jets were the second best team in, but they found a way to win that game. Just for the record, for all those people who think I'm being negative, I thought the Jets were the best team in this game here today and didn't come away with the win. So it goes both ways. But Scott Arniel was in that game talking about them being better and this and that, but they played the clip on the show and basically said, like, does he sound confident? Does he sound like the Scott Arniel of last year in a post game? And I thought the point was really well made. So because of that, I'm paying a little bit more attention to kind of the tone and things like that. And I got to say, Ken, I was almost a little bit surprised at the tone of Scott Arniel after this game. Now, I get it. 2 points or what he wanted tonight. They didn't get that. But I was expecting a coach that was a little bit more optimistic and a little bit more positive about the Jets in the way that they played this game tonight. What did you take away from his tone in the post game?
Well, I wasn't down there, so I'm gonna have to defer to you on that. I was writing the Gamer again today, so I didn't have a chance to listen. I did see some of the quotes, but I have to defer to you here. Sorry.
Okay, well, I guess I don't know that I have a lot more to say on it, just other than the fact that I mean, okay, let's. If I'm talking about just tone, the tone surprised me. It felt like he came out and was more frustrated than he was encouraged.
Okay.
I think that there's reason for being encouraged. That said, maybe you don't have time right now if you're a head coach to be like, okay, well, we've got encouraged, or maybe he's not a guy for moral victories, because this is just another way of
Right.
me saying, okay, moral victories here. The one thing I would also take away from this is I had thought, and it sure seemed in the way, like I asked questions about this, the reactions that I got from the players and the reaction that I got from Scott Arniel was I really touched on something here. And maybe I touched on the very nucleus of this thing. And that was that the Winnipeg Jets defense were extremely gapped up and as aggressive as I can remember seeing them for a long time this year. And so asking what got to that, Logan Stanley was the first one to talk about their 3F and doing the job that they need to do to allow the defensemen to take the risks that they take to gap up and to challenge the Dallas Stars and try and hold them in their zones. And the fact of the matter is that 3F does his job properly, the risks are mitigated in that situation. So that's what he had to say about it. Then Scott Arniel, when I asked him about the gap up and the aggression that we were seeing from their defense, he kind of got into the 3F. He talked more about that, but he said that's what all our video was about. That's what our practice was about. Ken, how much credit do you give to the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff and that, after a very, very almost humiliating loss to the Edmonton Oilers, they got that practice day they hadn't had for a while. He basically let us in on what they were working on in practice day. How much credit do you give the coaching staff for the turnaround that we saw, at the very least, between this game and the game that they played last against the Edmonton Oilers?
Well, and it reinforces what we've been talking about the last week or two, Sean. I mean, Scott Arniel's comments, our forecheck was really good. We didn't spend a lot of time in our own end. Yes, they made some mistakes, but we did a good job defending when we didn't have the puck. That has to be more of what we look like as a group. Then he talked about the compete. But then quickly he said, it can't just be there against Dallas because they're in your division. It has to be a constant. And that is something the coaches are smart, Sean. We know this. The Jets have not been consistent at all. So the fact that he was willing to acknowledge some of the good, but also saying, like, now trying to stay on task, right? I agree with you completely. The game plan they put together was a winning type of game plan. They just happened to put up that game plan against one of the best teams in the league and didn't get the job done fully over the line. But for sure, they deserve credit for laying it out. And and I mean, they're going to have this is the problem for the Jets right now. They have to be precise almost every time out. And the other thing that we know, and that's something Scott Arniel was also asked about in the morning, Sean, about the inability to get games to overtime. This is another game. They got to find a way to get that to overtime. Whether they lose or not, that the difference in those loser points in shootout or overtime are what's preventing the Jets from being over the line. Don't you agree?
I actually think that this whole thing is a little bit of a nothing burger. Um, the whole them getting it to overtime thing. I thought Adam Lowry treated that question like it was a nothing burger question, and I agree with Adam Lowry in this case because for the most part, the Winnipeg Jets have not been close in the
Well,
losses
no,
that they've
that's
had.
totally fair. Yeah.
So lamenting the fact that they've got so many regulation wins and that they don't have overtime points is as ridiculous as lamenting because there was an example used about some team that had like 8 overtime losses and where they were in points compared to that team. Well, it's like lamenting that team's not very good in overtime and that that team is missing out on 4 points. Like if they can switch half
Yeah, if they
those
go
games,
500, yes, I get it.
now they're another 4 points up on the Winnipeg Jets, right? So
Sure,
to me,
that's St. Louis.
that's St. Louis. So to me, that's a little bit of a nothing burg story because everyone can use that to their advantage. Oh, we're getting to overtime, but we keep losing it. The only team that can't use that to their advantage is teams that are going to overtime and winning every single game that they have in overtime.
No. My point is that the Jets' inability to get to overtime is an issue for them because they're so good in overtime, right? They're not at least ensuring themselves of an extra point. The fact that they've not been able to get to overtime is a big problem. But the bigger problem, Sean, is that they've been losing too many games by 2, 3, or 4 goals.
They don't deserve to go to overtime.
They're not even close enough to be getting to overtime.
Exactly.
But that's still part of their story this year. That they can't get those games, but that's because of the lack of defending, not because their inability to close out games in extra time. That's not what I'm talking about.
That would be a big storyline if the Winnipeg Jets led the league in 1-goal losses or something like that, right? Then you could go in that direction and be like, oh my goodness. But if you're just not giving yourself a chance in games, I'm not going to be like, oh man, if only you could have got that to overtime as you lost 6-2. You know what I mean? Like, to me, and it comes back to the point that I made at the beginning of the year and I made on this show and I've made time and time again. One of the reasons you're not coming back is, yes, they're great in overtime, but one of the biggest threats they had that got those games to overtime in a game like tonight is gone in Nikolai Ehlers. That's what you were losing when you lost that player. And I don't know I know that at the beginning of the year last year, I'd said that I thought Nikolai Ehlers was gone. In the end, I was right. I don't know if there was a time that could have been fixed. I personally believe that if Nikolai Ehlers had been handled the way Scott Arniel handled him last year for multiple years before that, Nikolai Ehlers would still be here. And then maybe it would be an issue because Nikolai Ehlers would be getting them into more games like that. Anyway, oh geez, I had somewhere I was going to go, but you had a really interesting point to make there, and it kind of took me off. It's okay. The consistency part of it. That was where I wanted to go with Scott Arniel because I thought that was fascinating because that was another thing is I think maybe the reaction that we got from him tonight with like the lack of being like he wasn't resting on his laurels on this because to your point, he's a guy that hasn't seen consistency from his team. So the last thing he wants to do is be like, guys, we did it. I know we didn't with Sean Reynolds, DNM, Doctor of National Media. Excellent. Good one. Hey, that one would have been
nice job.
Nicely done.
No, this is the pristine wake-up call for you for not thinking of it yourself.
What's that? Oh, no.
I've got wake-up call. Oh, you got one? Okay.
Well, I do because if the Winnipeg Jets are looking at this situation, they've got a coach right now that they've not earned his trust that he can expect them to come out in their next game against the Boston Bruins the way they came here tonight. He could do that last year. Scott Arniel knew that the next game and Rick Bowness before that would say, we're going to be better next game or we need to do this game and we will. You remember how often he would do that? Because you could set a watch by what the Winnipeg Jets were doing and what they were going to do coming off of losses and coming off of games where they were challenged or coming off of games where they built a blueprint and taking it forward. This is a coach that is not sure right now, Ken, if his team's going to do that. And until we see that Bruins game and how they play, we will not know if the Winnipeg Jets got the Pristine Roofing wake-up call here tonight. You know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289, the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. A guy he's a good guy to talk to about life as well. But if you're not interested in talking about life and you're just straight up business, you can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Okay, Comrie?
Yeah, I mean, I know the raw numbers definitely don't look good. Both power play goals I got no issue with. The other goal is definitely looked like he didn't see it. I think Logan Stanley was close. I mean, he was definitely, there was a pile of people there. Stanley, one of them. First goal from Lindell, certainly don't love it. Top of the circle, looked like there might have been some traffic there too. But again, first minute of the game, that's kind of one that you'd want to have. But again, I don't place this game on goaltending. But it's another game where the numbers don't bear out that it's when the Jets have won the games with Eric Comrie and net, he's been, posting 909 to 9, what was it? 971 save percentage, 935. Today is 789. And Sean, I mean, under no metric is that going to work in a long stretch of time. So I'm not placing this at the feet of Comrie, but in a 1-goal game, there's probably a goal that he'd like to have back in there. So, that's 10 of 11 starts. We know that Scott O'Neill intimated that Dom DiVincentis would be starting. It made it sound to me like it would be one of these games on the homestand. My best guess is Monday against the Ottawa Senators. What do you think? First of all, Comrie's play, and then when we're going to see DiVincentis make his NHL debut.
This is one of those ones, just like you deferred to me with the coaches. I have no interest in who's going to play goal game. Honestly, it's one of the least interesting parts of this job. So it's one. But of those.
Goaltending's important for the Jets right now, with their MVP out.
Yeah, I guess I just and maybe I should be more checked in, because last year it just kind of felt like it was the most interesting part about the goalie carousel in the last couple of years with the Winnipeg Jets was I just thought that it was wrong that the Jets never found Laurent Brossoit enough games to get his name on the Jennings Trophy, and same thing for Comrie. Other than that, I mean, it's, I guess I got too used to the Winnipeg Jets being a team that, I didn't think it mattered who was in net. I don't think it mattered last year with Comrie or Hellebuck, and I definitely don't think it mattered the year before with Laurent Brossoit in net. I thought, like I'd said, my thoughts on the matter are well known. I just, maybe I'm not giving Dom DiVincentis enough of a go here, but I don't think that. Okay, I think that Connor Hellebuck in this game, the Winnipeg Jets win this game. Okay, I said that earlier on. I think that's happening. I don't fault Eric Comrie, but I do think it's a game that Connor Hellebuck could have won for them. And I think that there's been a couple games that the Winnipeg Jets could have won with Connor Hellebuck in the lineup during this stretch. But don't give me, like, all the people out there who are saying the Winnipeg Jets would be winning if not for this are the ones who are taking a look at a team that had, a couple games ago 9 shots after 2 periods and are getting pumped in the shots and stuff like that. Don't give me that BS, because all you're doing is you're just ignoring the faults of a team and saying, oh yeah, that would have happened. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. But it's easier to buy it, Ken, on a night like tonight where they win. I know you're not the big believer in the shot clock on this night. I am. I thought the Winnipeg Jets turned things.
They earned it.
It immediately after that goal was scored. And I think that they showed, like, if you want to say, hey, we're not winning games because of our goaltender, you need to have more stat lines like you had here tonight, where you went out and you showed that you
Yep.
were getting the busier of the shots, and that you were getting the busier of the 5-on-5 opportunities, and that you were controlling the puck more often. Okay, now I'll take some of that argument, because as I say that there are some games that I think maybe, just maybe, the Winnipeg Jets would have won if Connor Hellebuyck was in net. There's also two games, the Montreal Canadiens game and the Buffalo Sabres game last Friday, that I think that the Winnipeg Jets could have got no points in either of those games in a game that Connor Hellebuyck was in, because I thought Eric Comrie was that good in those games. So for me, maybe I should be giving Dom DiVincentis more of an idea that he's going to come up and he's going to steal a game. A young kid's going to walk into the NHL and immediately start earning DiVincentis points for the Winnipeg Jets. But other than that, honestly,
I'm just saying, because he said he was going to be playing. I just was curious.
I know
it's going to be against one of the Eastern Conference teams. I just don't expect it to be against Washington. And Ottawa. It's not going to be next week against the three Central teams. We know those are going to be Comrie games.
Well, but you never know, Ken, because maybe, and I wonder about, maybe this will change with the way that the team is playing, but maybe Scott Arniel is in a position where he picks the weaker of the teams and then puts his starting goaltender, Eric Comrie, in those games, because getting those 2 points and locking them away is more important than matching your best player against the stiffer challenge. So because of that, I would think maybe he'll go with Eric Comrie against the Boston Bruins, because they look a less formidable team than the Washington Capitals. And then you throw in Dom DiVincentis, and if Dom DiVincentis is able to go off in that game and turn things around, maybe you steal one with a hot young rookie. Hey, now that I'm getting the muscles working with this goaltender conversation, I'm starting to love it. But we should do this more often, Ken, these debates. Anyways, before we do the awards, I would like to don the headband, because that helps with the award selections. I'm kind of like what's his name, Johnny Carson, when he used to wear his little hat and he'd hold the things. That's what I got to do.
Done. Yes,
get some of these. There's gonna be definitely an era of people who are not going to understand anything that I'm saying about
check
there.
The YouTube.
It doesn't matter. What they will
check the YouTube, folks. You can do it.
What they will understand is this is going to be a Sean's Headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. Let's go. Honestly, Ken, we're almost too old for Johnny Carson references. I was pretty young when he went moving along.
Karnak the Magnificent, people. Look
Karnak the Magnificent. There you go. Hold the envelope to your head, and that's what we'll have to start doing with the awards here. But before we do that, I just want to tell you about the folks down at Myers Drugs, the people that will take care of all your pharmaceutical needs, all of your health food needs, and they can take care of that right with you sitting at home. You could take care of it right now, just sitting in front of your computer, because Myers delivers everywhere across the city. So give them a call. They will take care of you and take care of you right. Okay, Ken, time for the Johnston Group. Got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
There's a breakup at the 4-3 stage here. Got into it. What didn't happen often. There were just a couple of track meet situations, and I think Neil Pionk broke up a 2-on-1 rush there. That's what I'm identifying in the game as my.
Sorry, who did?
Pionk, I thought was the breakup, or was it DeMello? It seems like it's always DeMello, but I thought it was Pionk in the defensive zone. I think it was Rantanen and Johnston attacking there. So.
Okay, well, I would say this, and this was one of the things that really tipped me off that the Winnipeg Jets were kind of back closer to their blueprint.
Yep.
Is Josh Morrissey made a play to hold the puck in at the line.
Oh,
and it was one of those plays that, like the aggression that we saw from them last year. And what happened was it chipped behind him, and there was a little bit of a 2-on-1 possibility. And Josh Morrissey, facing one way turns and catches the other guy and negates the 2-on-1, makes it a 2-on-2, ends up being a nothing burger play. We saw that so often last year, and that's not just the speed that Josh Morrissey shows and his agility and his ability to get back into the play, but it's the fact that those forwards aren't flying through that zone, because the way that the Winnipeg Jets are defending at that stage or pressuring, it somewhat keeps the opposition on their toes. So I'm going to say this is one of those things where it's Josh Morrissey with the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game here, but it's Josh Morrissey having the opportunity to do that because the Winnipeg Jets system is starting to have their defenders covered, which has the potential for changing the way this team plays and the pressure it's able to apply to its opposition. So that for us, or for me and Ken, is our Johnson Group got you covered plays of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnson Group got you covered plays of the game, which brings us to the keg save of the game. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, I think it's got to be the Sam Steele breakaway. I think, that's the one that stands out to me. I mean, there were some others, but that's the one that I liked. An honorable mention to DeSmith. The double sequence on Gabe Velarde was pretty impressive, and I think there was a crossbar in there too at some point. But Comrie on Steele, I think, is what I'm going with.
I entirely agree, Ken. If that was Connor Hellebuck making that save, we would have called it
exactly
boring, because he just had him the whole way and played it the right way. We would have been giving major accolades to Connor Hellebuck had he made that save. And it was a really key time in the game. Like if Sam Steele scores, that game can twist and it can get ugly. It could get a little bit more like the Edmonton game, at least with the score line, even though the game didn't look anything like the Edmonton game. That is Ken's and my hashtag the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You are automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And I see this person in the chat room here tonight, Dr. Sad W, Dr. Sad W, a doctor like me, Ken, here winning on this night. Dr. Sad W, you are the winner of our hashtag the keg save of the game from our last show. What you need to do is direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me your email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. All right, Ken, anything you have to say before we get going?
No, I think we tackled pretty much everything, but we have to provide a stick tap to newcomer Danielle Bain, who confidently called a Logan Stanley goal this morning. So,
oh, really?
Small stick taps there. Yes.
All right. Well, you're going to get her into the gambling world if you keep that up there. But anyways, that's it for us. Time for us to check out. Before we do, we would like to know, hey, do you appreciate the conversations going on in this space? Because if you do, you need to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnson Group, and of course, the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Let's reconvene. Do this after the Jets game against the Boston Bruins on Thursday. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.